And we are live. Kia ora everybody, what's up? It is Robett, and I am joined by Lisa Tai, Associate Director at Deloitte. How are you?
I'm tired. I just said it, and I'll be honest, I'm really tired, but I'm good. And it could be worse. So I'm just gonna keep my husband's here, just keep it real. So I'm tired. Yeah, juggling kids at home and working full time's been a bit of a learning experience, but it could be completely worse, so I can't complain.
You've locked the kids outside of one of their rooms. Your husband is looking after them to make sure they don't do too crazy. So I've been warned. If we hear screaming in the background,
They're
they're actually
safe.
totally fine.
Don't worry, don't worry. Don't call the police. Don't call the police on me, please. They are fine, I promise.
For those who don't know your role, give them a quick 1 minute spiel on who you are, what your buzz is, and what you're all about.
Sure. So my name is Lisa Tai. Look, just thank you very much for having me on here. Really pleased to be here. My day job is I'm an associate director at the Deloitte forensic team, which is part of risk advisory in Auckland. And also, and probably my main passion is I lead the Pacifica strategy for Deloitte New Zealand, which is new, and it's we're working our way through it, but it's really important to me and to the other Pacifica staff that we have at Deloitte. In terms of my background, I've done 13 years in professional services with a big focus on forensics, so fraud and corruption investigations and advisory. Where I'm from, which is really important, I was born in Fiji, moved to New Zealand as a child, and my mum is Rotuman, so from a very small island of Rotuma, which is, I think, about 600 k's north of Fiji, a population of less than 1,500 people, and my father is from the town of Savasavu in Fiji. My husband is from the village of Falulatai in Samoa. And I have two children, so I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old.
You got heaps on. We've got plenty to go through. I grew up in Suva when I was little in a place called Samabola. I went to Gospel Primary just off Dungy Street. Yeah, so that was my hood for until I was 8, and then 4 to 8. Yeah, so I lived there. It was living in Fiji when I was younger gave me a massive grounded me in perspective constantly. I talk about it when I do my little speeches or whatever. I'll say, I realized that I was very blessed and fortunate and had gratitude when I was 6 years old, because I had leather sandals and some people in my class had plastic sandals. That was a thing. And some people didn't have sandals. I felt that I was, we were rich because I had a concrete house and some people had tin houses. Literally like that type of shit. And it was very instilled in me very early with that stuff. So yeah, I can. Definitely get part of that. And even just like now, that's quite a random journey from Fiji to flipping crazy forensic business shit at Deloitte, like doing the money stuff.
I know.
What a flipping trip. How are you navigating at home now? Like a 3-year, so I've got a 2 and a 1. I'm very fortunate that, wifey's a weapon and she's, was a nurse and stuff. So she's on fire with that. How are you navigating full-time work at home with a 3 and a 6-year-old during this stuff? Like, how's your routine? Is it just a shit show?
It's a shit show. There is no routine. It was a shit show before COVID-19, to be honest. So, it's my husband's a builder, and we're really lucky that my husband's at home at the moment. So, but I think just the idea of being available 8:30 to 5 online with children at home is false. Like, that's a false reality, and there's no point even aiming for that. So, I'm really lucky that we do have flexibility, and so I do what I can during the day. It might mean doing some stuff in the evenings or catching up. And I've had to apologise lots of times over the last over the last week for interruptions, being little people running around in the background or screaming. And I think the good part is that we're all going through this shit together at the same time. Yep. So people are, I think I've heard a few times with people that you've interviewed, one good thing to come out of this is we're learning more about people and what happens for them outside of the office, which I think,
100%.
So important. So no, it's good. They're long days. I feel like I'm really tired, but I'm not having to do the horrible commute from West Auckland to the city every day, but I'm still really tired. So I'm like, we're not going anywhere. But I think
it's mental weight. It's mental baggage of juggling the personal and professional, and it's this thing. I guess I'm very fortunate because regardless if I've always been the same, regardless if I'm talking to someone homeless or a CEO or a 15-year-old or 50-year-old, I'm flat. Like, I know I am flat. I'll be the flipping same exact person. But many corporate roles bring a a level of kind of polish or prestige or armor or this kind of not shell, but yeah, like a different, maybe not truly authentic self to work, because they've got to the presence of their title and these other things. And what it's become really apparent in this last 2 weeks is instantly it's just flattening everything
Yeah.
down, and it's humanizing a lot more. And I've obviously, not just from the people that I've been interviewing, but friends of that are running businesses that are in these different companies, saying like, dude, I got to see like, the boss's like backyard and shit, and he's like there in a t-shirt, and like just these weird things which you wouldn't think would be things, but they are. And so, I mean, you work for a big organization, thousands of employees all around the show. Have you felt it's, especially within the accounting world, have you felt it's like created more empathy within teams? Or
yeah, and I think we have, we say it a lot in terms of bringing your full self to work, and I think definitely over the 13 years that I've been in, I guess, professional services world, it's gone better, but I think what it has done, it's leveled the playing field, right? Like we are all in the same situation, and we're sort of sharing our baggage more openly, which I think is really important. And for the work that we're doing when we're working with Pasifika businesses and organizations, that's really important. And so being able to relate, having empathy, understanding, what someone is going through is, it makes us irrelevant if we don't get it. So I think, yeah, it's definitely leveled the playing field for all of us, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree, but it's kind of cool seeing that even happen within a very professional type sector. So I wanted to get into the Māori Pacifica stuff. So, and what I mean stuff, I'm thinking about the dynamics of how communities, what they're going through, and I was thinking about the waves of what was coming. And the first wave is, oh shit, everyone's back at home, blah blah, and it started from a where it leads to is I put a quote up, I think it was a week or so ago, and I said, March 24th, in 9 months time, there's going to be a whole bunch of Christmas Day babies, ha ha ha, like funny 9 months a day, okay, cool. And then someone goes, yeah, and divorces and domestic violence.
Yeah.
And I never thought about the other side of the coin of someone else's situation. And I was like, okay, shit. I'm potentially not in the best stable relationship. I've just potentially lost my job. Now I'm stuck at home with this, and there's fighting, there's kids, and there's family, there's stress, there's pressure, I don't have sport. There's all these other weird things. But a big one for me was when people get frustrated, and domestic violence, if you look at the stats and the numbers, a lot of it is predominantly from Māori and Pacifica. So then I was thinking about what type of homes and communities are happening right now as we speak around New Zealand that isn't being talked about. And I don't know if you had any insight or thoughts about it, but my kind of gut was saying I think we might, there, as we speak, there could be a whole lot of very vulnerable partners and relationships that have now been forced into physical confines and quarters with no escape. And my gut was feeling that it might be a dangerous thing for society as well. And so I don't want to get dark and stuff for a second, but I know it's some real shit, and I know people that are close to scenarios like that. So I just wanted to maybe just go there for a sec to see, like, yeah, the other challenges potentially that we're not thinking about.
Oh, I think it's a very yeah, and I think it's a very real situation for a lot of our communities and for our families. I will taper that with, there are organisations and people out there in the social services sector doing some amazing work to reach out and to connect with those needing help. So by no means am I I guess an expert in this area, but I'm very aware that there is a heightened level of risk of bad things happening during times like this. And I think, yes, it's definitely, we're in a confined space, even for our kids as well, so for kids where maybe school time may have been an escape and was the highlight of the day. Now all of a sudden, you're stuck at home and maybe an environment that isn't the best. And so I just want to point, I think there is definitely a need with our Māori and Pacifica communities, but I think it's across the board as well. So there are some amazing people trying to reach out to the people that do need help, but I think that's even more reason for us as Pasifika people to reach out to our families and to our networks and just to check in with people and make sure that they're okay. And I think the other added pressure is financial pressure for our families, right? So for a lot of, and these are complete generalizations as well, and there are people that don't fall in this bucket, but it's a few about many of our communities live paycheck to paycheck, and when the paycheck stops, like I'm very familiar with what that means when you don't have savings in the bank. You might be waiting. You may be waiting for the wage subsidy to come through the funnel. So there's a real immediate need to provide basic essentials for our families. And there are, groups like Pacifica Futures and through the various ministries doing some amazing work to address that need. But I think, when I complain about having my children at home making noise, I mean, there are bigger issues than that right now, and it's long term. It's not. There's definitely the immediate response that's needed, but I think we'll see the impacts of this on our communities down, for a long time to come.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel there's plenty that are lucky they might have the escapism to I'm away at the batch and I'm locked
Yeah,
away, and and that's like, hey, cool for you, but it's almost bringing up to the forefront a lot of, I guess, tough questions or uncomfortable questions that potentially it's very been easy to have been hidden in the past, and now it's almost raising them all to the forefront
yeah,
around. So I think your point around looking out for your neighbor, but actually looking out for him is probably the key there. I've I'm hopeful that more people are on the awareness side, but also I'd actually hope that people can be brave to actually pick up the phone and ask those crew, because there's plenty of my mum used to work for like Women's Refuge and Salvation
hmm
Army, and my wife's been a nurse, and I've seen a lot of, I've heard, you hear stories about that sort of world, and it's something that I kind of generally feel is important that New Zealand needs to have, because yes, we've got a medical issue, yes, we've got a
yeah,
financial issue. Also, I think we are going to have a community issue, not just so much in potentially domestic violence and divorce and relationships, but just the mental health awareness of the safety of
yeah,
the people. There's a people issue. And yes, we're locked in our houses to save the medical side. We've got a stimulus package to sort out the money stuff. I'd be really intrigued to know what's the thinking at a macro level from a government down or whatever around how the people going to be looked after a bit more, because it's a lot, and I don't want to go down a negative path, but I'm getting messages, I'm talking to friends, I am seeing things. There's some real shit sort of bubbling away, and so yeah, I would just hope that they don't forget about the third part of this equation either. With being people that need help or need.
yeah. And oh gosh, these are some loaded questions. So,
No,
um,
it's,
but I think it's really important, and it is a good point that when you look at the news, I mean, it makes complete sense, right? So, health, business, financial are all very important things. But what does it all center around? It's around our people, and we have some really vulnerable communities right now that need
yeah.
help. And the issues are bigger than being stuck at home with, like yeah. I don't even have the answers, to be
I
honest.
know, and no, it's
I
a
don't
question
have the
but
answers.
you got to start the conversation with it, and that's a part of it as well, because it's something that I've been sort of thinking about a little bit, and then obviously as well when you look at a lot of the pressures in many households,
Mm,
regardless what race, whatever, it's very much financially driven too. So there's the there's a crazy, like, almost intersection of like culture, commerce, health, tech, business,
mm,
home, family. There's this, we're in a moment, right?
mm.
It's tense and it's bubbled, and it's just, there's all this kind of this energy. So I'm just hoping we can get through. So with your, so you go.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I think I agree with everything that you've said, and um, which is why I just think it's really important to stay connected, and to stay connected with the people that we think need our help,
Mm.
beyond, I guess, the surface level of, yeah, I think reaching out to people and being brave enough to figure, and actually just finding a way to help. There are some amazing initiatives being run to reach out to our vulnerable communities. So, once you feel comfortable and you've got yourself sorted, figure out ways that you can help, and to help and make an impact with, some of our communities that are most in need, I think is something that we can all at least think about. And it could be in your own, I guess, and that's what we've done with the initiative supporting the Pacific Business Trust, is thinking about, well, we've got some amazing professional staff members with great expertise. How can we use them to help the people that need it? And through our Pacifica strategy, being very aware that our Pacific businesses need help right now, and the help that they need may be a little bit different from a corporate, and figuring out, well, what is it that we can do to help? So I've used the word help a lot, and I think that's the key thing, is figuring out a way, actually just stopping and thinking about other people that may be in a different situation to you and going, what can I do with my resources to reach out and to help somebody else.
Totally agree. The Andrew says, opportune time right now for Māori and Pacifica knowledge to get in front of the change. Lots of upside to discuss. Good luck, Lisa Tai, answering these.
Thank you, Andrew. I think I need the luck too.
No, well,
and Andrew's doing some amazing work with our people in Australia. So big shout out to Andrew, because I know he's got some awesome initiatives. So we're in New Zealand, but these issues for our Pacific communities are bigger in other regions, especially when I think about the islands and what might be happening over there. And for my family in Fiji, right? So we're lucky here in many respects that we have a good health system. We have, MSD, which is doing, they're doing an awesome job at the moment to put money in people's pockets. But when you think of our families in the islands, and the level of support that the government can provide, I think that's where it's different. And that, you can't rely on the system all the time. You actually then rely on your family and your wider network and your village and your community to look after you. So I think it's a different scenario, but I think the need, is just as great. So I can't help but, definitely thinking about how can I help my community in New Zealand, but also, my family and friends back home in Fiji and Samoa.
Maureen Crampton says, my concern is that we were told the lockdown would be 4 weeks. We're now learning it's likely to be longer. Many whānau would have put different plans in place by bringing students home and getting those on their own to join our bubbles. How do we get that compassionate message through to the government without compromising the purpose of lockdown? Whoa, that's a bit deep. It's a bit above my pay grade there.
And I think it's above mine. I think it's above mine too. But I think the health stuff has to come first, right? Because we have to get that right, and it's just finding ways to make it work. And my sister lives in France, South France, and they've just had their lockdown extended for a couple more weeks. And so, like many others, I think the 4 weeks is hopeful. And we'll go a bit longer. And so it's, I guess, just trying to figure out how do we make it work in the scenario that we're in at the moment. And it's not easy. And it's harder for some.
So with the, yeah, I definitely agree. With the Māori and Pacific, the Pacificas of businesses that you're looking after, that you're helping front, what type of challenges do you think is different for the crew that you're kind of engaged with or working with? Like, where's the headspace at for most of those type of business that you've either engaged with or thinking about when they're, I guess, having direct effects on their business and their livelihoods and everything, sort of take on how they're sort of dealing with it?
So we started this up end of last week, and so I guess based on what has come through so far, the number one area that people need help with is applying for the wage subsidy scheme through MSD, and we're really lucky through the partnership with the Pacific Business Trust is there's a dedicated team at MSD to help our people with the application process, because I guess my biggest fear is that, yes, there is this pool of funding available to help business owners. We need to make sure that our people don't miss out and that they feel well equipped to A, check are they eligible, B, to apply and to provide all information that they need to. So, there has been the number one focus is on making sure that our people are applying for the funding that's available. And yeah, definitely shout out to PBT and MSD that's doing an awesome job with that space. For the people the other issues have been around cash flow. I don't know how long I can keep my doors open based on the cash reserves that I have. And so cash flow forecasting and budgeting is also another big area. And one that came up yesterday, which I think is really important point to raise, was one of the business owners said, how do I pivot, which seems to be a really important word in this space, is how do I pivot my current business to suit the needs of the environment that we're in at the moment. So, which is awesome that people are thinking longer term. I think there's definitely immediate need focused on cash and having enough money to pay staff and bills, but also longer term focus going, I want to stay in operation. What does this mean? And how can I change my business to suit the current climate? So yes, I think and for us, it's not just saying you need a cash flow, or you need a budget, or you need an updated strategy. It's actually working through the practical steps of, well, what does that look like? And we can help you put one together. So, and there's there's no shortage of awesome material that's been published around to help businesses navigate COVID-19. But I think there's not too much information, but it is information overload. And
It's
so
a
for
lot.
us,
Yep.
I think the key difference is sometimes people just need someone to spend a couple of hours with them to go, okay, tell me about your business, your story, what are your immediate needs, and we'll work through it together in a very, I guess, simple, easy to understand way that a small business owner will get. And I think the other important thing that we're working on is the service isn't limited to for-profit businesses. We recognise that in our community, non-profits, community groups, social enterprises is also a really big part of our ecosystem. So, what we're doing is open to essentially any Pacific organisation that needs help with navigating the current situation.
If you were a small business owner right now, your world's been turned upside down, you don't have an online business and you haven't been able to pivot yet, what are the first things you'd do right now? You're home, you're stuck, you've got, staff employees, you're trying to figure stuff out. Like, what would the first things you do that'd be like actionable? Where would you go and what would you do?
The first thing that I would do without a doubt is checking if you're eligible for funding that's available. And the big one is the wage subsidy scheme through MSD. So figuring out, am I eligible and how do I apply, and getting that underway as soon as possible, I think is the number one priority. It just has to be to help with money coming in and paying bills and paying staff. And I'm quite mindful that the businesses that we're talking to, I guess the people that they look after is a bit broader, right? So we're not just supporting one business owner and immediate family. Quite often that business supports a wider community and wider family. So the need to keep money coming in is really important, and finding out where are those avenues available, I think has to be the number one priority.
Yeah.
Cash.
Yeah.
Cash to pay. Yeah.
Cash flow. The mental process for a lot of these businesses is going to force them into strategic thinking, which they potentially haven't had to have before. And it's not like they knew something was coming and then they could really plan it out. Like I was saying to Jolie Hodson, the CEO of Spark, was, they have plans in place because they think about this shit, and there's entire processes that sort of roll out. They had that, not that they had the luxury, but there is documented things which they can integrate into their business to get through this. Small businesses don't have that shit. The majority of pretty much everyone that I know that would be in that space.
It's a luxury to have one, right? It is.
Yeah. So how would you go around approaching the strategic thinking that you would need to do? Like this practical and tactical stuff. How do you get your headspace around the strategic approach of this entire thing? Because there's going to be a lot of, I guess, stress and weight strategically with what pieces you move and how that sort of does. What would you sort of say to a crew like that?
I think you're right in that having a strategy and having very flash business plans is not, that's not what our people have right now. And finding the headspace when you've got other commitments crowding your headspace is can be really difficult. So I would say the way to approach it, based on, and this is definitely by my personal experience, is breaking it down into chunks and over a time frame, right? So there's definitely the immediate need, and then what I want to be doing in 3 months, 6 months, and it's hard because who knows what the heck we're going to be doing in 6 months, to be honest. But I think finding where your strengths are, and focusing on that and going, okay, well, if my strength is in X, how do I make that relevant to the current climate? And those are really hard questions to find space to think about. And so there are some amazing advisors that are making these services free and very accessible to the community, that I think bouncing around ideas with somebody that isn't involved in your day-to-day business is really important. So it's a hard question because of what people are focused on right now, but we have to be looking out into the future, and I guess where would you like to be? And it's so hard because we're going to be stuck in the same bubble in a couple of months. So like, to be honest, who flipping knows? And so I guess and I think just being mindful of what you're good at and where your strengths are is really important, and playing to that and getting external advice to help you work through it is important, because having someone that can take the emotion out of it a little bit and help you make the hard calls. And for some businesses, the hard call might be, for right now, it's not the right idea. What's not the right answers to keep going down the same track, and maybe it's a park it, have to do something else and come back to the dream in a year's time or whatever it might be. So I think, from my perspective, involving people outside your bubble that can give you some, sort of practical advice is really important.
Yeah. What are you most fearful of for Pacifica business, or for in business in general in New Zealand? What are you most fearful of?
My biggest fear for Pacific businesses and Pacifica communities is that we get left behind, and the gap between us and everybody else increases. To be honest, I think there are situations like this where nobody is escaping this unscathed. We're all impacted by it, but my fear is that there is a disparity between us, Pacifica, and Māori and other groups, and I fear that the gap will increase.
And that's because the size of the business, the education, the networks, the mentorship, the access to capital. What's the elephant?
All of the above.
Yeah, but if there was I always think of times like this when it's gnarly. There's ninja moves you can make, right? And if there's already been gaps before, what were the reasons for those gaps? And in a time of crisis, what are the actual moments where liabilities can be assets and opportunities? Is there a ninja move out there that you think could help elevate and help Pacifica business lead with the tip of the spear into the New Zealand?
Ninja move. One ninja move that I've thought about is actually collaborating with, getting a couple of different Pacific businesses together to work closer together, and whether that means they form some sort of coalition, or they merge resources, or share resources, right? So I think of my husband, who's a builder, right? You might have two teams, and one has lots of work, the other one doesn't have. How can we move people to make sure that people have enough work across the board? So I think, because of our scale and numbers, coming together just has to be the right answer. And we need to think about mechanisms that we can put in place to make that easier for businesses to do. But I think it's going to be a hard slog to do it on your own.
I would agree, because usually if it's the one man, one woman band type scenarios, and they haven't even had contingency plans, they don't have cash flow, whatever, you kind of think about, if I'm an investor right now and if I got a shit ton of cash, I could look at a bunch of distressed assets and buy it for cents on the dollar, right? And in plays like this, you almost wonder if the collective mentality of Pacifica business could do some type of service-based roll-ups.
Yeah, and collectivism is what we do well, right? Like,
literally.
That is at the core. That is at the core of who we are, right? So coming together, working as a group. So that is already a strength of us. So, finding ways to leverage that, what comes naturally to us, is important.
That would be interesting, right? Is if you got, because I always think of it like, perfect example. So 5 years ago, 6 years ago, my mentor, who was absolute weapon, ran a $1 billion business for a bit. I explained to him the situation in my head with what I thought was happening. And did all this shit, right? I just went on this mad spiel about how I thought, whatever. And then in one sentence, he just asked one question that had nothing to do with what I was talking about. That was actually directly associated, because I was down here thinking, and the great thinking came on top. I was like, actually, team, let's just elevate this conversation, and this is the actual question you should answer. And it changed my life, right? And I wonder, in situations like this, lots of these small clusters, they're all copy-pasting in a really unscalable, inefficient way with their time, trying to solve problems which they don't have. And I'm kind of seeing it like, well, wouldn't there be power in a collective of these businesses? Why couldn't you do a Pacifica roll-up? Why couldn't you boom, 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 boom? And then you just need that sort of glue, right? And then you win through brand, blah, blah. And I'm working on a place specific, kind of around this, but for students. And start up small businesses. But there's no reason that couldn't exist with a few dollars at the top end of town, because then if you got access to be able to consolidate some of those different expenses or whatever, I'm sure it could make a business more profitable and get the numbers sort of working right. Has anyone done so this is just what my brain sort of goes on these weird tangents. Has anyone done a Pacifica service-based roll-up?
Has anyone done in the current climate? What we're in
In
the
any
current
climate,
situation?
like
I'm
got
sure
all,
there.
yeah, maybe. I don't know any, not big
I'm,
ones.
I feel like definitely at the community group level, there would be lots of pulling resources together and working
Hmm.
together. Within businesses, I'm not sure, to be honest. Um, I know the Pacific Business Trust. I'm just trying to think about. I think the collective is the ninja move, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah, yeah, no, I get
And
it.
so then I'm like, well, who can help us with the ninja move, and who can help us make it happen, and who actually has the connections to go, hey, Bob over there, you're doing this.
Exactly.
Sam over there, Sione, you're doing that over there. How do we bring it all together? So I think, people like the Pacific Business Trust, the Ministry for Pacific People, who have a good appreciation of what is out there, can play a really key role in like connecting the dots a little bit. Um, so
I
I'm
get it.
so on. I'm so onto this ninja move thing now. You've given
No,
me
no, no.
lots
So this is
to
that's what I
think
didn't know
about.
because my one that hasn't been fully properly named or launched, but it will be soon. It's called the Students Collective,
Awesome.
and yeah, and it's basically helping self-employed, I guess, at-risk youth and stuff to start their own businesses and blah blah, but done through kind of gamifying brand and hood, whatever. That would be an interesting chat. I mean, I'm happy to jump on a call, whatever. But if you could line that up, because then if you could,
Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
anyway, okay. What are you most at the end of this thing? What are you most hopeful about for New Zealand business? What are you?
What am I most hopeful about for New Zealand businesses? What I'm most hopeful about for Pacific businesses in New Zealand is actually we've found a way to make the most of this current shit situation, and we've got some businesses that have found a gap and have leveraged it and are doing really, really well. So, and I
Mm.
think we have the entrepreneurship and the innovation in us to make it happen. So, I hope that happens, and I have no doubt that we will have really successful businesses that come out of this doing really well.
What
And I
sectors do you
hope
think will be the biggest? What sectors do you think will be the sweet spot at the back
services.
of
I think services sector
si-
has to be looking after our people directly. I think has to be. Um, yes, there's a
hospitals?
technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, there's the technology stuff. The technology stuff for sure, and online is a given. But I think this situation has made us realize how much we need support from other people, really.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I hope that the services and it's definitely social enterprise sector find a way to thrive in this environment.
And what's your game plan strategically for how you're trying to execute your role within Deloitte now that you're remote, especially around with Pacifica and stuff? How are you? What's the game plan of how you go into execution mode in a time where people can't be together?
This like video chat thing, I think, is going to be the key. And and it's been interesting for us with the Pacific businesses we're talking to, right? Like, not everybody has a webcam or access to really strong, fast internet. So we've had our people getting on the phone, and calling people and having long chats on the phone, after hours and that sort of stuff, which I think we just have to be really open to doing things differently. And I think for us in engaging with Pacifica, it's around how do we build rapport and trust with a small business owner who may never have heard of Deloitte, to be honest, and doesn't know what we do or who we are. But how do we, without meeting someone in person, let them trust us to give them some advice? And so that's really important, and really proud that the team that's helping to deliver the service at the moment are Māori and Pacifica professional staff at Deloitte. So a big shout out again to the team that's delivering it. It's really important. But they have a really good understanding of how to engage with Pacifica virtually. So,
Yep. So I've
which I
got a
think is important.
yeah, I've got a mini sort of challenge with it. When you're young, you look up to sports players, and then when
Hmm.
you're in business, especially I was probably one of them. There was no one that looked like me, that rolled like me, that was around, and so I think to help that would actually be identifying and bringing in a collective of these sort of alumni effect from Pacifica that have done it in business, who would be so down, and it doesn't even need to be a Deloitte exclusive thing. I even just think like the collective effort of those brains that brings trust, because they're known quantities for what they've done and represented. I guarantee that alumni effect for Pacifica probably doesn't exist or being leveraged the same way potentially it could have either. So I wonder if there's a gap there. Yeah, really
and
interesting.
I think there are lots of Pacifica people doing some awesome things, and we are, to be honest, are doing it in our silos, or doing it in the domains that we feel comfortable in. So I think that a collective approach is a good one. That seems to be the key word for today.
Yeah, ninja.
Yeah,
Ninja
collective
shit.
ninja. Yeah, I'm all for it.
No, I
But
appreciate
no, cool.
if people want to be able to track down a little bit more of what you do, where can they go to, or where can they go?
Sure. So if you go to the Deloitte.co.nz website, there is a COVID-19 hub there, where the access to the Pacifica resources are available. Also to Pacific Business, the Pacific Business Trust website, which I think is pacificbusiness.co.nz, has all the links in the form that you need to apply to gain access to the service. And by all means, please feel free to reach out to me directly, either via LinkedIn or email, if you want to chat directly. So more than happy to help.
Good. I've put that link to the COVID-19 hub on all the different platforms and links there as well. Through the power of technology, all is possible.
So fast, so live.
I don't piss around, Lisa. I'm here to flip and do damage. It's like, shit. Get out.
Bloody ninja. You're a ninja.
Ninja shit. Write me into that conversation if you want to do a
yes, please.
roll-up. That's interesting.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think there's something in there. It could be an extension of what I'm thinking about with the students collective. But no, hey, really appreciate your time, Lisa. Good luck with the 3-year-old and the 6-year-old and the hubby that's now gone 7 minutes over what was supposed to be expected. Give them a big high five and a hug, and I'll see you on the other side of this this chaos.
No, thank you. Look, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's good luck, and keep up the awesome mahi.
Appreciate it. Cheers, Lisa. See ya.
Thanks. Bye. See ya.
Champ. Good humans. Bloody great. Lisa, running the show there, Associate Director at Deloitte. I've put the links down there. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. Each different big business is doing their own way to sort of interact and stuff, so feel free to reach out. If you're a Pacifica business, pacificafutures.co.nz, pacificbusiness.co.nz. And I'll see you guys soon. Adios.